The following episode of the Maui Chamber of Commerce's Business Matters was originally broadcast on December 2nd, 2025.
It's time now for Business Matters, brought to you by the Maui Chamber of Commerce. Now here's your host, the president of the Maui Chamber of Commerce, Pam Tumpop. Good morning, Pam. How are you today?
Hey, good morning, Gary. I am excellent. How are you this morning?
I'm doing good. It's like you can feel like it's getting a little wintry. It's a little cool in the mornings.
Yes, I'm feeling that too. I was just thinking, gosh, I wish I had socks on my feet up here in Pukalani this morning. Funny you should mention that.
Yes.
But it's a lovely holiday season.
Yes.
So much to be thankful for, and so many things to continue to work on as we move into the new year. But grateful for you, Gary. Thank you for all you do for our show.
And we're grateful for the Maui Chamber of Commerce. You guys work hard out there. I just sit here behind the microphone and, and harass you.
Well, or address issues with me, like a computer crash this morning.
There you go.
We're on it. You're fabulous. Well, thank you so much. And to everybody who's joining us this morning, welcome to Business Matters. I hope you are having a phenomenal holiday season. There's so many things going on in this world, but we still have so much to be grateful for. And so it's always important to give thanks. This morning, we are going to have a wonderful show. We're going to begin with Council Member Alice Lee, who is the Council Chair, and talk about the important bill that it was heard yesterday, Bill 9. So we're going to talk more about Bill 9 and the draft CD1 that was taken up yesterday and learn more about that. And, really help the community understand this is critical legislation that we really need to better understand. So we're going to talk about that. And then we're going to be followed by Vitality, who has long been one of our Made in Maui County Festival vendors, who has really grown their company tremendously. It's a kombucha company, has moved into cold brew, and will be giving us some exciting news this morning. But first, I want to introduce you to our council chair. Of course, many of you already know her, Council Chair Alice Lee of the Maui County Council, representing the Wailuku, Waihe'e, and Waikapu residency area. She was born in Wailuku, Maui, and also received a bachelor's degree in political science from Chaminade University. Her professional background includes many diverse experiences, and from retail operations, insurance, as a loan officer. But of course, her current role is chair of the Maui County Council. She also has done amazing things, of course, working for the county over the years, not just as council chair, but in the department, and has tremendous experience, especially in housing, with the housing department. So it's my great pleasure to welcome Council Chair Alice Lee on, who has been a guest on the show numerous times, and we're thrilled to have her back. Good morning, Alice. How are you this morning?
Good morning and aloha, Pam and everyone. I'm recovering from yesterday. It was quite an intense meeting, but looking forward to the holiday season and spending more time with the family.
Yes, gosh, absolutely. Me too. It really, this is the time where we really should be spending time with the family and really enjoying the season. But I want to commend you and all of our council members. We're taking up a tough issue. It's extremely tough because, unfortunately, our dear friend and council member, Tasha Kama, passed. So that has made things even more challenging right now. But, this is an important bill that you're addressing, Bill 9. Tell us a little bit about, let's jump right in. Let's start sort of backwards and start with the vote that was taken yesterday. Tell us about the result of the vote taken on Bill 9 yesterday afternoon.
So the bill passed 5-3. We have 8 members without Tasha. We have 8 members on the council. And so those who voted against the bill was Yukile Sugimura, Tom Cook, and myself, because, as you probably know, we strongly feel that this bill needs to be fixed. In fact, probably needs a major overhaul, if anything.
Yes.
From the very beginning, we advised the administration and shared with our colleagues our concerns about, the that old example of the cart before the horse.
Right.
Well, in this situation, we just have the cart and no horse. So
right.
Not only are we doing things in a sloppy and incorrect manner, this type of legislation would have tremendous impacts, not only for West Maui but for all of Maui County, because we're talking about enormous revenues that we will no longer be able to collect from the short-term rentals classification. Yeah. And this is one of my major concerns, is that we're depleting that source of income and not replacing it, and not replacing that revenue stream with something else. And that's on real property taxes, general excise taxes, and transit accommodations taxes. All of that will be wiped out. And so my initial compromise proposal was to, instead of having such a significant impact like that on our revenue base, I suggested that the money that we collect from STRs, which is it's like $247 million from the STRs, all the STRs, not only the apartment district, but that money would be earmarked for West Maui to build new, affordable, decent, safe, long-term housing. That was my suggestion, and to lessen the impact of simply prohibiting short-term rentals, that we would phase out short-term rentals by attrition. So that means when people are ready to, not use that use anymore, then at that time they have the option to either, they have the ability to stop the use, and that's when the use would, for that particular unit would be done. So that to me would have been fair. It would have given people a tremendous amount of notice and the opportunity to pursue options that they have. The other concerning matter with this bill, cart with no horse, is the fact that it requires people to get a change in zoning. Property owners that operate short-term rentals, legally, by the way. It's a legal use, and their use has been in the code, the county code, so it's codified. This bill takes away that right for them to do short-term rentals, and it tells them, if you want to continue short-term rentals, you have to apply for a change in zoning. By the way, the zoning doesn't exist. So, that excuse me, that is very unusual. In my 26 years with the county, I've never seen that. You pass a bill taking away a use, telling that person your recourse is to apply for a change in zoning, and the zoning doesn't exist. It will, in other words, they're saying to you, we will do it in the future. Well, that's a promise that very few people can keep, because over time, the council will change, the makeup of the council will change, the staff will change, administration will change, not only the mayor, but
Right.
people in the planning department and all the other relevant departments.
All the directors and deputies, yeah.
And all the planning commissions, which also have a say
Yep.
in this process. So,
Right.
that seems so disingenuous. And it's like telling people, okay, we're going to come up with this solution in the future, but it'll take a huge leap of faith, in order to trust that the system will come up and complete this process. There's no guarantees. There's no guarantees. And so with something as uncertain and, just totally, unbelievably incomplete, this is not the way to legislate. You have to have, whenever you legislate, you have to have a rational basis, and you have to have a achievable outcome.
Yeah.
And we don't have that. We don't have the fundamentals with this particular legislation. So this has been my concern, along with some of my other colleagues, including Tasha Kama, by the way.
Yeah.
And it's
Absolutely.
hard. It's hard not having her with us. But
yes.
in any case, even though she would have been with us, the vote would have been 5-4.
Right.
We just for some reason could not get a fifth vote. And that's the upshot of it all. If you don't have 5 votes, then that's what makes the world turn at the council level. And so here we are. We passed first reading. Second reading is scheduled for December 15th. It'll be a combined public hearing and council meeting. And this will be the last, unless something highly unusual comes up. This should be the last and the last step to pass Bill 9. Usually a second reading. Go ahead.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Usually at second reading, there are generally no substantive changes.
Yes. And at this point, we need substantive changes.
Well, you can browbeat us as much as you want, but the bottom line is that we need 5 votes and we have 3.
Right.
So,
right. And as you point out, Tasha, was working to try and mitigate this, and people are also saying, it's also been unusual because, of course, the proposal started with Mayor and Kiani, and there's been a lot of advocacy, just through the administration done on this as well. A lot of community outreach and calling for support, which has been interesting, that we don't usually see in the same way.
Yes, yeah, you're absolutely right. But unfortunately, regardless of who the mayor is, the important point is this legislation should have not been proposed until it was fully vetted, analyzed, and addressed the impacts. There's so many impacts to the county, to the economy. And I hate to see what eventually, I guess, people are going to say, well, we'll just raise the taxes to offset the loss.
Right.
Well, I don't think, you don't do business like that.
No, and who does that hurt? It hurts our local community. And as you said, your proposal was to take this revenue and add, $247 million to housing to address the crisis. And I know the mayor has continued to say we can't build our way out of it. And yet in the building community and beyond our local Maui building community, top economists are saying the only way out of our housing crisis is to build our way out of the housing crisis.
Of course, a lot of these, they talk about the high prices and high values and whatnot, but that's a function of inadequate inventory.
Right.
It's not going to help by using old inventory, which passed its regular life expectancy, units built in the 60s and 70s and 80s
Right.
that today not only have high HOA fees, that's the least of it. What's more concerning is that they come with lots of special assessments for renovations, for retrofitting. Oh, now they need a new roof. Now they need new wiring for their electrical system. Now they need new plumbing. Now they have to conform with no cesspools. And, all of those things are very expensive. And so my desire, strong desire, was to try and provide the people of West Maui and then all people in Maui County with permanent affordable housing, which we can afford if we use the monies that we have correctly. All the monies that we collect now, leveraging the monies we received from the CDBG funds.
Yeah. Well, and you've been a housing director, so you will understand this issue. And I know you were involved when we had a past council member who ignored economic reports and said, we're gonna change our affordability level, in state law just for Maui County from 25 to 50%, and we lost a ton of housing back then. He just refused to listen to, the challenges with the bill and the economic hardship that could ensue, which we experienced.
Unfortunately, I was there as I wasn't on the council, because if I were at that time, I would have voted against it most vigorously, trying to require developers to provide 50% of affordable housing. The problem is, when you're on the council, we have very few options because housing actually is determined and affected by not only the council, but the planning department, the planning commissions, the public works, finance, and on and on and on. Fire, police, everybody has a say in affordable housing. And so sometimes it's very frustrating to be on the council and see that you have very little power over these types of things. But what happened years ago is they figured, well, if we're not getting enough housing, let's just require more. But they don't understand the ramifications of that type of policy. And sure enough, and I was there on the floor the day they voted. It was in December of 2006. I can remember like it was yesterday.
Yeah, me too.
And I tried and tried. I pleaded with the council, don't do this, don't do this. And sure enough, what happened? Nothing happened. No new housing came on board for years. So now we were, in a situation where we needed more housing. Now we were in a deeper situation where we were desperate for housing.
Right.
So everything compounds itself on bad mistakes, Yeah. And that's what I was afraid of yesterday.
Yeah, it's exactly. You and I were having the same premonition. It's like we've been through this before, and we've seen it, and and it's going to cause tremendous delays, and they don't get it. And I understand. People don't understand if they don't have the knowledge, if they haven't experienced it. You and I have. And this is a time when we have to build ourselves out of it, and we have to partner. And we've got developers that are, have options and have. I mean, there were so many things we pitched during FEMA, and unfortunately, FEMA changed their RFP to not just modular, but mobile, which, in Hawaii we don't do. But we had really great options. And so it's just really tragic to see, again, for me, watching this and thinking back to that time with that vote and all we lost back then, and lost home builders who said, look, if Maui County doesn't want us to develop in this area and isn't going to be reasonable and move things through, we'll develop other places. And they did. Stanford Carr says, why develop on Maui? Right? This isn't working.
And then unfortunately, people do not connect the dots. Now, for instance, by losing close to $90 million a year, not just one time, a year, in 10 years, that would amount to close to $1 billion that we are just giving away. Now, connect the dots in that a good portion of that money went to the Affordable Housing Fund.
Right.
Now, we're not going to have that money for the Affordable Housing Fund from the STRs anymore. And that the STRs also help to fund the homeless programs and the senior programs and the youth programs and all of these, subsidies that we provide to the county, even agriculture, diversified ag. All of that money supported all of the other things that we have in the county that we offer.
Right, environmental services.
And the list goes on. So how to replace that money? You're going to now overly tax other classifications? That doesn't make sense. That really does not make sense. You have a bird in hand right now. Right now, you have $247 million. It's right there. And, to use your resources properly, to recognize and use your resources properly is part of our job.
Yeah.
And we're apparently not doing our job.
Yeah, it's really very scary. And as you point out, again, there's been these promises made. There's been rhetoric that really says this is an affordable solution, right? This is a must-have. This is our affordable solution. And as you point out, these condominium properties have a lot of repair and maintenance. So how is it? Even if you look at the numbers today, and as you point out, these are aging properties that are long past their original life. I mean, they're very old. They're in need of major repairs. It's hard to get all of that data. Well, you can get the association fees because that can be disclosed in sales documents. To get the special assessment information is very challenging. And so the challenge is we don't know what all these units need and what the cost is going to be. And so we're saying, well, don't worry about that right now. We're just going to get in and get these units. And then on top of that, we're talking about huge job losses in these areas. So you're going to have people losing their jobs over this issue, which that's been reported by the UHERO study. We're talking 1,900 job losses. And then how are people supposed to be able to afford these rentals? And if they get in these rentals, which don't match the community wants and needs, that's documented by the TIG, it's documented by our survey, they don't have the type of living conditions that our community is asking for, which would come from home building. And then we lose all this revenue. It's just, I'm just floored that we haven't gotten to some sort of a compromise. And I was really hoping that with the TIG and the TIG recommendations and people agreeing that those were important recommendations and the county coming forward and saying, Bill 9 is step one and all this other wraparound legislation is needed, that we would come to say, before we pass Bill 9, we need to have a good handle on all the wraparound legislation, the TIG recommendations. Those need to come first before we move forward and take steps that are so drastic and lose revenue and have a huge impact on the broader economy, not just the job losses, which are tremendous, but our economic health and stability, which is going to hamper our ability to raise money in the future. I'm floored that that didn't pass. Amendment didn't.
The amendment provided by Member Cook, and I had a similar one which I withdrew because it would be a duplication. But his amendment would have recognized exactly what you said, the recommendations of the TIG, and in other words, but his was different from mine in that those on that Exhibit 2 would not be affected until the zoning was in place. In my case, I had wanted, which I knew, it was an exercise in futility because I didn't have the votes. But what I wanted was to propose similarly all units, not just on Exhibit 2, all units would not be affected until all the requisite zonings and et cetera was in place. And then once everything was in place, that would trigger the start of Bill 9. So mine would have moved that date, that arbitrary date of 3 and 5 years, to when everything is in place, when all the components were passed and in place, and the bill could actually be implemented correctly. But I didn't have the support on that. So, but again, there's so much contradiction as well, because the administration came up with a housing program using the federal funds, and for 3 purposes. And to reimburse someone who already has rebuilt their house in Lahaina, to help with the reimbursement. Secondly, just to help from the ground up, not reimbursement, but to help people get started to rebuild their homes. And third, an outright grant to find housing to buy. But the funny part of that is that there are restrictions on the outright grant. You cannot build in the flood zone. Well, that's where a lot of the STRs are.
Right.
So on the one hand, for the DR funds, you can take $600,000 and go and buy a house, but you cannot buy that house in the flood zone. But those are the homes that they're trying to say will be available for the local residents.
Yeah, for long-term rental and affordable, apparently.
Like, what? That's why I'm so, befuddled and just frustrated, because you have these inconsistencies, and you have these, these hypocritical policies. So and for some people, they just don't see that. They just don't see that. And I didn't think it was rocket science.
No, but I think again the broader community. It's interesting. I'm talking to so many people, and of course, business people right now. They see it. I mean, there are people who have been paying. There are people coming out of the woodwork who are really paying attention and saying, "We just can't even believe this is happening. We can't believe it was proposed. We can't believe how it was proposed. We can't believe that that they get that on the council there's a split. They can't believe the administration wasn't willing to put forth more proposals because they said this is the linchpin. You need all this wraparound legislation to even make it work, and yet that didn't happen in the year before it was really coming forward. They felt far more research, as you pointed out, should have been put into this before this even was launched. So they hear it, but when I'm talking to people in the general community about it, and even nuances like this that are so simple, right? It's like, okay, but there's this other program, and we're going to give people money, and you can get a grant, but you can't use it there. Those kinds of details, the inconsistencies, a lot of these nuances, I'm really finding the general public doesn't understand. The trickle-down effect of the budget, so the loss of this money, and as you point out, impact on programs like for seniors, for our youth, beyond housing, because apparently a bunch of people are willing to give up money for housing, oddly enough, in this time of crisis, which is astounding to me. But they don't realize the trickle-down effect that this legislation is going to have across our our county programs, and the funding loss. And again, this commitment, that you were trying to move forward, which is to say, divert this money to this critical need. And we're giving that up. And then people don't understand because they keep hearing messages that we're not worried about the lawsuits. And they don't get whether we win or lose, there will be lawsuits. We're going to spend a ton of money on them, and that's more money lost that could have gone to housing. So, and of course, a lot of people don't think the county will win. But regardless, the county has to defend themselves and make their case. And it's more money out the door. But I'm finding the broader public has not kept up with this and gotten all that messaging. They're stunned. They're just kind of stunned. And one of the other things they're kind of stunned with right now is, the replacement of Tasha Kama. Now it's in the mayor's hand, and there's no deadline for when he can appoint. And people are just going, well, wait a minute. How do we stop, this possibility of 4-4 votes all the time and move forward?
Yeah, I have no idea where he is on it. I would hope that he's on the verge of picking someone, because it's not only Bill 9. We have many, many other bills to deal with, many coming from the administration as well. So to hamstring the council's operations serves no one, really.
Yeah, it's people. That's the question now. People don't, and they don't understand that there was no time. There's no set time frame. So people are saying, "Well, when's it going to happen?" And I said, "On his time." We're waiting to see and hoping he picks a candidate that will serve us well, and hopefully he picks a candidate that will serve as Tasha would have served, since we're completing her term. That seems to us anyway right and fair. But there's a lot going on, and one of the things that comes up is, what was there an effort to stall Bill 9 by the council? That was a question that's coming up.
Well, one of the testifiers brought it up yesterday, and that's the thing about testifiers. They can pretty much say whatever they want, whether it's accurate or not. And what's supposed to happen, a lot of times the members want to debate with the testifier or clarify what they say because what the information they give is wrong. But really the process is supposed to be, as a testifier, you can go up and say anything that's, civil. But
yeah, as long as you're being respectful. Yeah, that's correct.
You can be wrong. And the right time to correct any kind of statements that are not accurate would be during discussion, not as the person is testifying. So I didn't respond to that person because I was trying to respect the process.
Yeah.
And then as we got into discussion, I didn't even bother responding to that because that to me was not important. What is important is the fact that the council, the committee chairs generally, when something goes to corp council or something is finishing up in the relevant department, then the report goes to the committee chair, and the committee chair reviews it for accuracy, so forth, signs it, and then it's transmitted to the council. So I did not get Bill 9 until October 28th. And then we had the meeting on December 1st.
That's right.
But that's when I got it, Yeah. So holding it up is so false. And people say those kinds of things to try and discredit you, and because they have taken a position opposite of yours, they want to make sure that somehow, some way, they're going to attack you And then in this case, she was completely wrong. Yet I just let it go. In the end, I just let it go. But the truth is, the council did not get Bill 9 until October 28th.
Yeah.
Tasha Kama received it from the Corp Council around October 8th or 9th. But another holdup was the TIG's recommendations, I think, came out October 14th. So you can see all these things are happening.
That's
but of
right.
course, the regular person, the regular citizen, is not aware of our process, which is very cumbersome. So I believe the TIG report came out on the 14th. Tasha received all of this information, but before she had a chance to act on it, she became gravely ill. And then on October 26th, remember, we got it on October, the mid to end of October, and she died on October 26th.
That's correct, yeah.
So, who are you going to blame? There's nobody to blame. It's the process that takes long,
Yeah.
And then she died on October 26th, and that then went to her vice chair, which is Nohe Uuhajens. She signed it on October 28th, and then it came to me, the council.
Yeah.
So that's how it happens. But to explain that to people, they really don't care because they're really trying to discredit you. That's the point.
Right. And no point in taking up more time in the process to go through all of that. But I appreciate you explaining it here because it's those kinds of things, again, these little nuances that people throw sort of this ball up in the air and just kind of leave it there, right? But I'm glad you explained it because, again, it is the process. And then, of course, with the passing of our dear friend and council member, Tasha Kama, there were so many other things that we were addressing at that point. And there was all new processes that had to be implemented and put in place to address council makeup, to move forward, there were so many other things. So, again, I appreciate you explaining the process because really, clearly, people don't understand the process. And so when they hear somebody say something like that, they think, well, they must be educated on the process, right? And that's not necessarily true because people think, well, if somebody says it and stands up in public and they're saying this, and as you point out, there's a lot of information that isn't accurate or not well understood that is shared, but it's shared and it is on public record. So it's good to clear that up.
I wanted to add one more point.
Yes, please.
I didn't have any idea what that person was talking about. She's with one of the unions, and she said, "You people like Yuki, me, and Tom, and Tasha went before the union and promised to vote for Bill 9." You see, and so it looks bad for us, right?
Right, which is false. Yeah.
Election campaigning.
We didn't have Bill 9.
Bill 9 didn't even exist at that time.
That's right. Exactly.
It didn't exist in the last election. So, again, people go up to the mic, they say any old thing they feel like saying, and it's wrong. It's wrong.
I heard that, and honestly, I laughed out loud because I went, what are you talking about? The bill didn't exist. It wouldn't have even come up. But so I was floored to hear that statement. And sadly, I was floored with some of the other comments that person made as well. And the reason was because as an organization that does candidate endorsements, you understand when you're endorsing a candidate that, hopefully organizations that endorse candidates, I've heard stories, and Tasha told me a story where a particular group thought she would be beholden to them based on their endorsement and expect to only vote their way. And she said to me, I had no idea that that's how they felt, which they made clear to me when I was going to take a position that they didn't agree with. And she had to share that she would vote her heart and her mind. But you understand, most organizations understand that when endorsing candidates. You pick the candidates that you think are going to do the right and best thing for the community, understanding they're not beholden to you. right? They're running for elected office. They have their positions. What you want to be able to do is be able to openly communicate with them and share your positions, but not condemn them if you think they're voting against something that you don't agree with. And so anyway, her comments seem to be also along that line and a little bit threatening. But anyway, that was disheartening to hear. And again, I knew it was inaccurate the minute I heard it because it hadn't come up at that point. So again, sad to and I know that you folks all understood that obviously that was inaccurate, but the public didn't necessarily. And so I'm glad that we're talking about that as well, because it's important. It's really important for people to understand that things can be said and it's not necessarily accurate. Well, we've got another guest coming on, but just to wrap up for a moment, are there any other additional projected impacts? We've talked about the lawsuit. We've talked about the broader impact this bill is going to have on many programs, given the huge loss of revenue. Is there anything else, Alice, that you'd like to share? Because this is going to come up for second and final reading. We have seen things overturned on second and final reading when they just don't make sense. Anything else you want to share on the impacts the community should really understand?
Well, the bigger picture is unless we have new permanent inventory, that is really the key to addressing the affordable housing problem. And that's what hopefully most people would be advocating for, not the use of old broken down cracker box units for your family, but brand new long-term permanent housing. That's what I believe everyone should be advocating for the residents of Maui County, even if you already have a home.
That's
advocate
right.
for others. Advocate for others, because this is the only way. A lot of times one of the biggest barriers to affordable housing is the community themselves, the community people. They don't want. They always say, "I am for affordable housing, but not next to me."
Right, but not here. I know it drives me crazy.
Well, sometimes the enemy is within. You think it's the big bad developer. No, it's a lot of times it's way more convoluted and more complex than people think. So one little thing like Bill 9 is not going to solve. In this instance, it's going to create more problems than it resolves. And I think the proof will be when you see exactly how many units will be bought or rented. What is that final number going to look like? If it let's say is 600, which is high, but let's say it's 600, because we're talking 600 out of over 6,000 units.
Right.
Is it really worth it to affect 6,000 units to produce 600 units? I feel that 600 could have been easily built in West Maui.
Right now, we've got people ready. We've got people who could do over 1,000 units.
Exactly.
There's several developers who are they'll put on the bench. They're ready to go.
Yeah, and we just have to be way more aggressive with the use of R1 water and conservation policies. We can have people conserve the water better, use the water, more wisely. Yeah, so conservation and the use of R1 water for irrigation, those are the keys to getting affordable housing in West Maui. All of our efforts should be concentrated on that.
Yeah, it really this is such an important time. I really hope people are listening. There are options. There are, the housing department the Housing and Human Concerns was bifurcated so the housing department could expedite housing. We have to build our way out of this. There are solutions, and we need to work to address it. And the most timely thing we can do is build our way out of it and create the units that meet the resident needs. Again, they want 2 to 3 bedroom homes. They want yards. That many of them have kapuna. They have keiki. 75% of our survey said they want yards. And they, there's rules in condotels. There's all sorts of things that don't really work for families. You can't ride your bicycle around the parking lot. Rick Nava was telling that story last week on the show. We have people with 2 and 3 cars, and I'm told that when residents were put in, the units through FEMA, there were huge parking issues as well, which if there'd been an emergency, parking was tremendously blocked. And people were saying, well, where do you want me to put my car? I've got, we've got multi car operators in our family. Where do they go? Well, where do they go in a condotel? Right? They don't. They don't fit. It's a problem. Yeah. Well, Alice, thank you so much for being on the show today. Thank you for all of the championing that you've done on this issue. Again, we're continuing to educate people here today, but also, I know that it's really critical to get these messages out because when I talk to a lot of our residents, they just don't know. And, we again watching, as we're watching and hearing people talk about, this is the right thing to do, and we just need to do it, and then we find out that they don't understand how much income is going to be lost out of the county budget, and then we find out that they don't understand all the nuances of what association fees mean and what's included in the association fees and how those are typically higher. And then they don't understand special assessments. And it's hard to justify this. I mean, the type of economic analysis takes tremendous time because some of this stuff isn't widely published. So it's not easily found, which is why it hasn't happened. If it was easily found, we'd be publishing it. But it's not. It takes a lot of work. And as you said from the very beginning, this is the cart before the horse, and we don't have a horse.
Yeah, right. Yes, unfortunately, yeah, and that's the way it is. And I hope people feel strong enough to write to the council and express their views, and only that could change the minds of some people on the council. I can't think of anything else.
At this point, I agree. What email should they send it to? Where can people send it to through an email that's really efficient that will get to all the council, or do you want them to? Because I think council services could send it out to all council members.
Yes, you could send it to council services or the county clerk's office, because this is actually in the hands of the county clerk right now.
Okay.
So, the county clerk would then distribute it to all members.
And do you know offhand what that email address is?
No, you can get that information off the web, our official site, MauiCounty.us.
Awesome. So, we want everybody to look for that. And this is a time, what we'll do is also we'll publish it on the Chamber's website today at mauichamber.com. We want to encourage everybody to ring in. And Alice, we won't get, for those listening, we're not going to have a chance to get Vitality in because I want to make sure that they get a chance to really tell their story. So I'm going to see if I can reschedule them for next week. But so we can kind of finish up the show here today. But we really want to get people to ring in. This is a critical bill. And all of our residents have, family, friends, children, are thinking of future generations. We're trying to prevent our ohana from leaving the island, and job losses, more job losses, more economic impacts do not keep people on island. We're seeing so many of our ohana leave the island, move to other states. They keep saying we just can't make it here. The housing costs are too high. And we really got to focus on the solutions that work. And all of us know people who need housing. So look at this and listen. I hope you listen to today's show. When we're talking about revenue loss that could go into housing, when we're talking about solutions that really don't have a strong plan, our community, our entire community needs a strong economic development plan. If we're going to replace the visitor industry, and the Chamber is a strong supporter of economic diversification. That doesn't mean we want to lose the visitor industry, but we know that we're overly reliant on it. We have to diversify our economy. And we're wasting so much time on issues where we're not focusing on housing and the core issue of sustaining our community with a diversified economic development plan.
Like you said earlier, thousands of jobs will be lost. And without jobs, you can't, no matter how inexpensive it is, you can't afford housing without a job.
Right. Or a rental without a job.
Yeah, rental is housing, meaning rental or, for ownership.
Yeah, ownership, yeah.
So, if you don't take a balanced approach to problem solving, you will never find sustainable solutions.
Yeah. Well, and I know you're working hard towards that, and we appreciate your efforts. We appreciate the work that you and Tom and Yuki are doing. We appreciate Noe for doing the TIG. We really hope and hoped and still hope that with the work the TIG did, that they will realize that putting that forward first and getting that work done, and before we move forward with Bill 9 arbitrarily, is really the best solution. Alice, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a great pleasure to have you on the show. So I just want to send blessings and best wishes to all for a wonderful holiday season. Please tune in next Tuesday. We'll be back again with Business Matters. In the meantime, blessings and hui ho.